This is Jed Distler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Back in 2019, the Brilliant Classics label assembled this 22 CD collection, a big box devoted to Virtuoso piano etudes, and it still seems to be in print. I looked on Amazon and I only saw it used, but I went to the Brilliant Classics website and apparently it still seems to be available. Anyway, it's not difficult to source. If you are a ClassicsToday.com insider subscriber, you can access the link to my review that I posted in the episode notes. I also posted a link to the video that my friend and colleague David Hurwitz made about this collection for his YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. If you haven't seen his YouTube videos, they are pretty amazing. He has more than 3,000 of them. It's incredible. Will I get to 3,000 podcast episodes of The Piano Maven? Who knows? Anyway, back to this 22 CD Etude collection. The majority of these recordings come from Brilliant Classics' back catalog, along with items licensed from other labels. Essentially, this collection encompasses the history of the piano etude. The back of the box lists the contents for each disc, but it doesn't list the performers on the back of the box, so the only way you can find out who is playing what is after you open the box and you look at the back of each of the 22 individual CD jackets. I guess you can also find out the performers if you look online, or if you look in my review or in Dave Hurwitz's video. So we have 22 CDs, and let's go through them. The first disc gives you excerpts from Carl Czerny's The Art of Finger Dexterity, opus 740. He was prolific, wasn't he? Fred Oldenburg is the pianist, and he plays 30 of these etudes very, very well. I have to tell you, though, if you want to hear this entire cycle, all of Opus 740 complete, you definitely have to check out a recording made by Francesco Libetta that's on the VAI label, and his virtuosity is absolutely scintillating. But the Fred Oldenburg selections are really quite good, and that will give you a sufficient taste of the Czerny etudes. CD number 2 gives us the 4th volume of the complete Gradus ad Parnassum by Muzio Clementi with pianist Alessandro Marangoni. And this originally appeared on Noxus. These are terrific performances full of spirit and vitality. His complete series of the Gradus ad Parnassum is not available on physical CDs from Noxus anymore, but you can stream or download the recordings. By the way, Alessandro Marangoni recorded for Noxus also the complete piano music of Rossini, and that's a box set that I also reviewed, and I should talk about that on this podcast sometime soon. Let's look at CD number 3. It's all music by Stephen Heller, the Hungarian pianist and teacher who lived from, 1813 until 1888. And you get the 25 Melodic Studies, Opus 45, and the Progressive Studies, Opus 46, numbers 1 through 15. This disc was originally part of a 2-disc set that Brilliant Classics released many, many years ago that contained Heller's complete Opus 45, 46, and 47 etudes. And I actually reviewed that original release for ClassicsToday.com. And I like these pieces a lot. They are attractive and well-crafted etudes. And the pianist Jan Vermeulen is a solid and sensitive artist. He's not the most scintillating, exciting virtuoso in the shed, maybe, but it's very fine piano playing just the same. CD number 4 opens with the 24 Etudes Opus 125 by Johann Nepomuk Hummel. This is a composer that the writer Harold C. Schoenberg said was overrated in his time, but underrated in our time. And I think that's a pretty fair and astute assessment. The Etudes are played by Mary Louise Boehm, who was a strong advocate for neglected piano repertoire. She also was one of New York's first pianists to really champion period instruments seriously. She also happened to be my downstairs neighbor, by the way, in my apartment building. She had an impressive collection of period instruments in her apartment, and I got to know her pretty well in her last years, and she told me some great stories about her teacher, Walter Gieseking, that I will share with you sometime on another episode. Anyway, her 1968 recording of the Hummel 24 Etudes, I think, was a pioneering effort. They weren't recorded before, so far as I know. And these performances have held up marvelously well for more than half a century. Also on this CD number 4, we have various etudes by Ignaz Moscheles, who was the mentor of Mendelssohn and a very important teacher and composer in his own right. They are performed very well by Michael Ponti. CD 5 continues with Michael Ponti, and we have a lot of repertoire here. We have 2 concert etudes by Karl Tausig, and curiously, just one etude by Moritz Moszkowski, the etude in F major that Vladimir Horowitz used to make famous as an encore. There's one Anton Rubinstein etude, but then we have all 12 of the characteristic etudes by Adolf Henselt, the most familiar of these 12. In fact, the only familiar one of these etudes is number 6, which is called Si oiseau j'étais, If I Was a Bird. Those of us who collected those cheap Vox boxes in the 1960s and 70s, remember those box sets with 3 discs, and they sold for next to nothing? Now, if we wanted a lot of rare piano repertoire, romantic fare, stuff like that, we generally had to contend with Michael Ponti, and he recorded boatloads of obscure romantic solo and concerto repertoire for Vox back in the day. He also did the complete Scriabin piano music, the complete Tchaikovsky solo piano music. He did the complete Rachmaninoff. He did all of this for Vox. And I remember when I was a student, we all basically wrote off Michael Ponti as a hack who just banged his way through all of this music after having sight read it 1 or 2 or 3 times. Of course, I was totally wrong. Michael Ponti worked very hard, and he really was a terrific pianist. And he was capable of great nuance and style when he put his mind to it, and there's a lot of evidence to that, including many of these recordings. Also filling out CD number 5 are the 5 etudes by Anatoly Lyudov, played by Marco Rapetti, and these are lovely pieces and they're lovely performances. So now we arrive at CD number 6. We start getting into the meat and potatoes of the etude repertoire. This disc gives us all of the Chopin etudes, the Opus 10 group, Opus 25, and the 3 Nouvelle etudes, all in terrific performances by Zlata Chocheva. And this is one of the best of the recent Chopin etude cycles. She's an imaginative virtuoso, and she just brings these etudes to life. They're marvelous performances. CD number 7 gives us wonderful performances by Wolfram Schmidt-Leonardi of Schumann's symphonic etudes, and these include the 5 posthumous etudes, and Schmidt-Leonardi places them at different points within the main text. And from Peter Frankel's 1974 Schumann cycle for the Vox label, we get very fine versions of Schumann's etudes based on the Paganini caprices, Opus 3 and Opus 10. We go now to CD 8, and here we have the 12 Transcendental Etudes by Franz Liszt in recordings from 2010 by Mariangela Vaccatello. I heard her give an excellent recital back in 2010 in New York at the International Keyboard Institute and Festival. And although her interpretations of the Liszt Transcendentals may not be the most hair-raising or individual on record, they are technically excellent and they're always very musical. There are no quirky mannerisms at all. I like these recordings more and more as I listen to them, and I'm very happy to have them in my collection, and it's good to have them in this box set. CD number 9 is interesting because it allows you to compare Liszt's 6 Etudes after Paganini with the same pieces but in Busoni's edition, and Busoni makes a lot of textural changes. So we have wonderful renditions of the original Liszt Paganinis with Goran Filipek, and we have the Busoni editions played by Sandro Ivo Bartoli. He's a very fine pianist and an interesting musician. I have to tell you that during the pandemic, Sandro Ivo Bartoli did this amazing project where he made YouTube videos for each and every Scarlatti sonata, playing them on the piano. This was quite an extraordinary project, and it really impressed me a lot when it was going on. And also on CD9, we have Clara Wirtz playing Waldesrauschen, the forest murmurs or forest scenes. I don't know how you translate that. It's a very beautiful etude. And then the etude La Leggerezza is played by Vanessa Benelli Moselli. And these are really, really good performances. CDs 10, 11, and 12 all feature that strange maverick composer Charles Valentin Alkan. And on CDs 10 and 11, we have the complete cycle of the 12 etudes in all the minor keys, opus 39, which include the Alkan Symphony, etudes 4 through 7, the Alkan Concerto for solo piano, which are etudes 8, 9, and 10, and the 12th etude is that amazing set of variations, Le Festin d'Aesop, the Festival of Aesop. That's one of the wackiest pieces of music ever. And all of these 12 etudes are fabulously performed by Vincenzo Maltempo. And filling out CD number 10 are 2 of the 3 etudes, opus 76, with a real maverick of a pianist, a very interesting pianist, Alessandro Del Javan. CD number 12 contains the 12 etudes in all of the major keys, opus 35, and the pianist is Mark Weiner. This is a reference recording bar none. Wonderful, wonderful piano playing. CD 13 gives us the etudes by Camille Saint-Saëns, opus 52 and opus 111, plus the 6 etudes for left hand alone, opus 135. All of these come from the Vox cycle of Saint-Saëns' complete piano music, recorded in the early 70s by Marilène Dosse. Dosse. I hope that's how you pronounce her name. But these are brilliant and idiomatic performances in every way. Maybe they're a little on the dry side, but they are really excellent. CD 14 gives us one of the best recordings of Brahms' Paganini variations, and again the pianist is Wolfram Schmidt-Leonardi. Then we have 3 etudes by Sergei Bortkiewicz with Pavel Gintov at the piano, beautifully played. Then Michel D'Ambrosio playing the 6 Studies, opus 70 by Alfredo Casella. And then we have Mark Weiner again on top form in the 6 etudes, opus 35 by Cécile Chaminade. CD number 15 gives us the 12 Transcendental Etudes by Sergei Lyapunov, and these are performed by Vincenzo Maltempo. Again, he's a fantastic pianist, and these are totally enjoyable and definitely reference-worthy performances. CD16 is another reference recording, and I really love this. It's the complete Rachmaninoff Etude Tableau, and again we have Zlata Chocheva. We heard her in the Chopin Etudes before, and this is stunning, stunning piano playing. Then on CD 17 from Dmitry Alexiev's Brilliant Classics box set devoted to Scriabin's complete piano works, we have what else? The complete Scriabin Etudes, and what's not to love? This is a great cycle. CD 18 is the first of the two discs that Emanuele De Lucchi recorded, encompassing the complete Leopold Godowsky etudes based on Chopin's etudes. And the works on this disc cover the Godowsky etudes based on Chopin's original Opus 10 etudes. I wish that the second disc in this cycle, with the Opus 25 and the Nouvelle etude transcriptions, had been included also. Oh well, can't have everything. And you can read my reviews for the original Brilliant Classics release of the De Lucchi Chopin-Godowsky cycle on classicstoday.com. CD 19 brings back pianist Mariangela Vaccatello, and she's playing the 12 Debussy etudes. I don't think her Debussy etudes are as good as her Liszt etudes. There are very nice moments. For instance, she impetuously tosses off the final etude's treacherous leaps from chords to octaves, and she also shapes the rapid scales in the etude called Pour les huit doigts with lovely shifts between legato and detached articulation. But the sonics are kind of dry, and, to be honest, there's much superior competition on disc in these works. Then we have Earl Wild's 7 Virtuoso etudes based on George Gershwin songs, and these are played by Giovanni Dora Miglietta, and I think these are just underplayed and overly gentle performances. They're kind of spineless, in fact, and you just have to compare them to Earl Wild's own performances, and it's a whole other world. CD 20 presents important 20th century sets of etudes: the Stravinsky Opus 7, the 3 Bartók studies, Opus 18, the 4 Etudes de Rhythm of Messiaen, and the first 2 books of Ligety's etudes. These are all recordings by Erika Haas. They were originally on the Tacit label. She's a good pianist, and she's very serious-minded, but to be honest, she doesn't have a lot of pizzazz. It's very good, workmanlike playing, and look, if I could play these pieces on her level, I'd be really happy. But again, there is a lot of superior recorded competition. On CD 21, we have 6 of the 8 concert etudes by Nikolai Kapustin, who writes written-out jazz. He's an absolutely fabulous composer. These are really fine performances by Sukyoung Kim, and they were originally issued on Piano Classics. Then we have a series of pieces called Play Piano Play by Friedrich Gulda, and they're played by Sasha Dryniuk. And these are 10 cute but relatively inconsequential pieces. And then we have the Etude Borealis by John Cage, played by Giancarlo Simonacci. And the final CD, number 22, contains the first book of etudes by Philip Glass, and these are the recordings by Jeroen van Veen, and he's recorded all of the Philip Glass piano music. He's recorded tons and tons of minimalist pieces for piano, and he's quite an enterprising and prolific and really marvelous, very special pianist, and also a very fine composer in his own right. So that's the rundown for this 22 CD Virtuoso piano etude collection from Brilliant Classics. There's a lot of good stuff here, obviously, although if you look at the contents on the whole, they represent a slightly skewed historical perspective of the piano etude, and there are, as you've gathered, some noticeable repertoire gaps. For instance, We have Heller and Czerny and Clementi, but there's not a single piece by Johann Baptist Kramer, whose 80 or so etudes are very important pedagogical pieces, and I'm sure that Brilliant Classics could have licensed a recording of those pieces. There aren't any Prokofiev etudes, there are no etudes of Busoni, and as I said before, only one Moszkowski etude. Wouldn't have been great if they had gotten the master tape for Ilona Vered's recording of the 15 Moszkowski etudes, opus 72, which have never been out on CD complete. But look, we have a generous amount of music gathered together in one place, so I really shouldn't complain. Now, some collectors might find it frustrating that while you get all of the Alkan etudes in minor keys, in fact, while you get 3 CDs worth of Alkan, you only get half of the Chopin-Godowsky studies or half of the Philip Glass etudes. That's why I think that perhaps this box set was curated in somewhat of a hurry, and perhaps curated with more expediency rather than with the most careful and thoughtful planning in the world. But as I hope I've made clear to you, there is so much music to savor and so many fine performances to enjoy. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Well, you have a lot of etudes to check out now, so I wish you happy listening.